I remember it so well because Jim in those days, as he got older, he didn't do it. But when he was younger, he always cleared his throat before he made a statement. It was like, and he goes, okay. He goes, the deal has been done. We're moving to Indianapolis tonight. Tonight, you will assist in the move. The trucks will be here at 11. And I remember what he said, and don't tell your wives, don't tell your girlfriends. We're moving with the stealth of moving an embassy in Washington, D.C.
Consider this the appetizer to the main course for this edition of the Business and Beyond podcast presented by PNC. Indianapolis Colts radio and TV analyst, former coach, and lifetime friend and colleague of Jim Irsay, Rick Venturi, peeling back the curtain on that move from Baltimore to Indy, Irsay's journey as an NFL owner, and what's next for the Colts after Jim's passing. And I'm pleased to be joined on the podcast this week by Rick Venturi. Rick, the longtime Colts radio and TV analyst, longtime coach, really a football lifer, right, Rick?
Oh, absolutely a football lifer. My dad was a coach. Football was a part of our dinner table when I was a young kid. And I was very lucky to start coaching right after my college playing days at Northwestern. Coach Agassi hired me right off the campus. That was back in '68. So, yeah, we put several decades into this. I think I'm up to 43 now.
Wow.
NFL, either coaching or broadcasting. So, yeah, wow. I'm proud of that one.
I'll bet you are. Now, okay, we're in the summer months now, in June, headed toward July. What does Rick Venturi do? You're busy during the season, certainly. In off season, is this prep time? Is this relaxing time, or what?
It's a combination of both. This is not, there's the deadline pressure's not there like it is during the season or even for the draft. What I'm doing now, though, in preparation is I begin to look at tape on all our upcoming preseason games. And I normally do a real good early report on our first 4 games so that once that gets rolling and everything is new and crazy, I have my reference points already there.
You love this, don't you?
You know what? It's just me. It's my lifeblood. I don't know what I would do without it. Like I said, I literally grew up in this. It was a way of life when I was 7 years old, much less now. I'm just so fortunate that I still have the ability, and the Colts have given me the ability at my age to still stay relevant and have a purpose every day and have this second act that I have. And it's really fun. It really is. It's hard work at times, but as you say, it's a part of me.
Yeah. Certainly want to ask you about the upcoming Colts season here in a bit, but want to get your thoughts again. Obviously, the big news most recently, the passing of Colts owner Jim Irsay. I know news came down just here within the last few days that he'll be inducted into the Colts Ring of Honor to open the 2025 season. So that'll be a special event, no doubt. Your relationship with him really goes back so many years, and you were both young guys in the game, and that's a unique relationship that you really had with him.
Yeah, it really is. It literally goes back 43 years, and it really evolved over time as we both evolved. He was 22 years old. It was his first year in 1982. I was a young Cub assistant, my first shot in the NFL. We were both probably in awe of the whole thing, to be honest with you. But because of our age closeness, we hit it off really well. We would talk music, we'd talk football. And then as we evolved, we went through the move together. Move. That was an amazing 48 hours. We've talked about it. I remember it like yesterday. Then the next phase of it, I took over in the middle of the season for Ron Meyer and became the head coach in '91. And by then, Jim is the GM. And so now we're meeting daily on game plans, on how to handle his father at that time, which was an adventure. And then I actually went through the firing process when I was let go in '93. And Jim called me in his office. He didn't really want to do it, but the powers to be did. And he gave me at that time, I have it next door here, he gave me a horseshoe and he handed it to me and said, "Forever a horseshoe." And of course, the final phase of our relationship was being able to come back and be a part of this broadcast team.
Yeah.
And have this second act. And I think my pride and joy in broadcasting is those interviews that he would do with me during the preseason. Yeah, they're historic. Some of them he got himself in trouble, some of them, but they were always just candid and unfiltered. And yeah, I say this pridefully, I think he was always super candid with me because he was comfortable. We had been through all this together. And so, yeah, that, as I said, the city, the team, the NFL lost a great man. The girls lost a great father. And I lost a great friend of 43 years.
Yeah. What you mentioned Jim's dad, Bob, who certainly, I guess, flamboyant. You can think of a number of terms to to describe. But I think you and I talked a few weeks ago, and you think that Jim dealing with his dad and some of those challenges really helped him mature as an owner and really benefited him himself as an owner.
I don't think there's any question in the evolution. I think in the early days, even when Jim took over as GM, there was a lot of patchwork he would have to do for his father. To say his father was volatile is one of the great understatements. You just never knew what was going to happen. And it was always chaotic. I got a little bit better after we moved to Indianapolis because the money was there, the facilities were there, the fan base, everything changed quite a bit. But yeah, I think Jim learned a lot in terms of dealing with people. When the time came that LA came a calling for the Colts, as did the Colts from Baltimore back in the 80s, there was that period where LA, which was always the big chip, came a call. And I think Jim, as opposed to his father, had really developed an affinity for this town, this state, the people. And I think he felt that super loyal. Jim's a super loyal guy. There's three of us that go to work in that building that were there in Baltimore. It's really amazing. Pete, John Scott, and myself. He's always been really loyal to his players. And I think he just developed that over time. And I'd have to say, and I don't mean to knock the white tornado, as we used to call him, I did think he learned a lot of things not to do, really, and a better way to do things from his father.
How close did things come with LA, do you think?
You know what? I was not here for that. So that's the other thing, is that part of our relationship was as an opponent. I left Indy for 25 years and went on with three other teams. And so I began to know the Colts as an opponent. Peyton Manning took years off my life, but I really don't know how close it is. But I do know I was in St. Louis as then a broadcaster, my early days in broadcasting, when the Rams left St. Louis and went to LA. And people will not realize this. St. Louis is a great sports town. We did not have one blackout in that period, but the deal was so good for Kroenke, who was a Missouri guy, University of Missouri graduate, that he couldn't pass it up. So I would have to say it was probably a humongous deal. And Jim chose, and to Indianapolis and the state of Indiana's credit, business-wise, and I think this is one of the real strengths of Indiana and Indianapolis, is they can come together, the 28 counties, and they built that palace, which is Lucas Oil. And that, just to use St. Louis as the opposite, they couldn't come together. They couldn't come together and put a realistic package on the table for the new stadium and everything that it took. I think it was Jim's loyalty and Indy doing a great job, as always. I find Indy, obviously, the state of Indiana would be considered conservative politically, but economically, I see it as a very progressive. The downtown, for me, when I came back after 21 years, it was just staggering. The growth of downtown Indianapolis. And I live in Hamilton County. Every place I look is building. I hope the demand is there, because you can't find a strip of land that isn't being built on.
Yeah. What do you remember? I'm sure there are many stories, but what do you remember most about the physical move from Baltimore to Indianapolis? That had to be crazy times. I was a reporter at Channel 6 at the time, many years ago, and was following this story. And this was before the internet. And even I don't think we didn't have cell phones. And
Oh,
so
no.
it was, we were getting Morse code or smoke signals or something. And I remember the excitement that the community felt, but you were on the inside. What was that like?
During the day, that day in March, I was told, I was whispered in my ear, don't go home tonight. We're going to have a very special meeting at 6:30. And to recap it, it was postponed till 8 because a couple guys were playing racquetball that weren't going on the trip. I think things I remember specifically that really stand out is at 8 o'clock, Jim came in the room. Jim came in the room. We were a small operation and mom and pop. I think we had 7 coaches and 3 scouts. We all sat around the table. Jim, I remember it so well because Jim in those days, as he got older, he didn't do it. But when he was younger, he always cleared his throat before he made a statement. It was like, and he goes, okay. He goes, the deal has been done. We're moving to Indianapolis tonight. Tonight, you will assist in the move. The trucks will be here at 11. And I remember what he said, and don't tell your wives, don't tell your girlfriends. We're moving with the stealth of moving an embassy in Washington, D.C. And so the stage was set. Now, there's so many things. And I remember taking down, and my wife still doesn't believe I can use a screwdriver, but I took down every white and blackboard that was in the complex. That was my job at 11. And then about 3, and there's so many stories that go with this, so many layers, how the kids came in, the college kids came in to move us. The trucks came pulling in at 11. And by then it had leaked. It was out there. It was an awful night. You've seen all the pictures.
Yeah.
And I think about 3:30 or 4 in the morning, Jim rallied us all together and said, okay, go your way. You guys have done a good job. I think this was a Thursday, something like that. He goes, we will leave for Indy on Tuesday, the following Tuesday, and we'll have to go out of Dulles. We can't go out of Baltimore on my dad's plane. And the irony now for me, of course, Indy was coming back home. My family was still in central Illinois. Sherry's family's in Illinois. We had driven through the summer before from Baltimore to visit our folks in the summer. And I remember coming across 70 and turning to my son and pointing at the then Hoosier Dome and saying, look, Jason, this would make a great, what was the league then, the other league, not the World Football League, but this would make a great USFL.
USFL, yeah.
Yeah, little did I know a few months later. And of course, like I said, we were coming back home. I had background in Indiana, hadn't worked at Purdue in the 70s as a college coach. So we were really comfortable coming back.
Yeah. One more question on Jim, and that's legacy. And you mentioned the Hoosier Dome. Obviously, the Lucas Oil Stadium was ultimately built. Downtown is transformed and going through, I think, now on the precipice really of that next big investment boom in downtown Indianapolis. As you think of legacy, Jim's legacy, what, in your view, is really going to be his legacy?
I think it'll be 3 things. I thought the ceremony for Jim was fantastic. It was more concert and happiness than it really was a funeral type existence. The girls, everyone just did a phenomenal job. It was inspirational. I think the inspiration will be number one. You asked me this question in another way a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I liked it. You said, how would Jim like to be remembered?
Yeah.
And I think number one, he wanted to be remembered as a champion, as winning that Super Bowl. The Shield and the NFL meant everything. George Halas was his idol as a kid growing up in Chicago. That was half of his life. That was half of his world. Secondly, he would want to be known as a great musician because the other half of his life was the Rolling Stones and Bob Dylan. And even the first time I met him, in 82, walking down the hall, there's this 22-year-old kid with a guitar on his back. Okay, so wow. I think he lived in those 2 worlds. I think he'd want to be known as a family man and as a community man. His philanthropy is chronicled, but he did so much more than that, so much more quietly. I think I said on your show a couple of weeks ago, there are programs that exist in this city, a lot of athletic programs that exist because of his giving. And in a sense, He died too young, and we know about the demons, but he accomplished all those things above.
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned the Dodgers' new ownership, new leadership, certainly officially on board now. As you look at this new era of leadership, your thoughts? This is, and it's been talked about, and this is not something
Yeah,
new. They've been actively involved for some time. How do you think this is going to play out?
I think you're right. You alluded to that. The silver lining is that Jim really has not been as active in the last 2 years. So that allowed the operation to grow for the line of succession, which was built in to work itself through because of that. I am very happy with it. I think that, again, the line of succession has been there for a long time. Kalen and Casey will have integral things to do in the Irsay conglomerate, if you will. But the face of the franchise and the football ops of the franchise is now Carly. And I am very confident, and this is not a company line. You know me better than that. She has worked just tirelessly to learn the game. She has sat in the meetings. She's on the sidelines with the headset. She has learned the game from top to bottom. That headset it's not an ornament.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. As a former coach, you see an owner with the headsets on. How do you feel?
Well, it's a first. It is a first. And I worked for 6 owners over 27 years. And I've never had, with the exception of Jim, with the exception of her father, I've never had an owner come into position meetings like she does and ask pertinent, significant questions. She's a baller. And I think that's so critical. I always thought that was the strength of her father. And not many owners are. And the reason I say that is I think if an owner knows the game, and not many of them do, Gary, not many of them do. If they know the game and its intricacies, what that allows then is for them to push the correct buttons. If there needs to be change or there needs to be different things. If you don't know the game, you're listening to pundits or friends and you're making decisions out of your hip rather than somebody that really knows it. I've been totally impressed with the seamless transition that has gone on thanks to her since the tragic loss. I think the press conference that really impressed me was when she stood up and she shows the force, class but force. She was very forceful. And she basically endorsed the big three. When I say the big three in an organization beyond the owner is the GM, the head coach, and the quarterback. That's the big three. And she endorsed them in terms of having enough talent to be successful. But at the same time, this is what I was really impressed with. She repeated her father's line from the postseason, right after the season, when she said, but this is not good enough. And our standard has to go back to what it was, essentially that great era from 99 to 2018, when the Colts were like the 4th best winning percentage in the league. So to me, there was a class in saying, okay, these are the guys, they're talented, but what has happened here is not good enough, and we've got to get back to the standard. Now that, to me, that answered a big question. Can you know the game, but can you have the forcefulness to do what you have to do? Sometimes it's very difficult. It's true in any business. And so, like I said, the fact that she has studied the game and been a part of it for the last 2 or 3 years, and then her forcefulness so far in press conference and so far, lead me to believe that we're really going to be on the right track. No doubt about it. Because you can't, I'm telling you, you can go through the league and you can't find owners who really are that involved. Now, they're involved when it comes to hiring and firing, but often it's just they're not doing it with the acumen that they need.
Much more ahead with Rick Venturi. We'll talk about that quarterback situation. What's next for the Colts? What's Rick's preseason prognostications, perhaps, how he views this next edition of the Indianapolis Colts when the Business and Beyond podcast returns.
At PNC Bank, we're committed to making a difference in the lives of our customers and communities by helping them move forward financially. As a Main Street bank, we try to do right by our customers with every encounter. Our local teams offer personalized financial advice to help guide you in making the best decision. We're proud to be part of your community. PNC Bank. See how we can make a difference for you at pnc.com. Copyright 2022, the PNC Financial Services Group, Inc., all rights reserved.
We build Indiana. The Laborers International Union of North America builds and maintains roads, bridges, and other essential infrastructure that make us the crossroads of America. So thanks to LIUNA members' work, Hoosiers have a better quality of life, like access to utilities, easier routes to jobs, schools, or medical care, and deliveries keep moving. We build Indiana for good jobs and stronger communities. The Laborers International Union of North America. We are LIUNA.
And welcome back to the Business and Beyond podcast presented by PNC. My guest this week is Rick Venturi, the football analyst, the Colts analyst, radio and TV, a lifelong NFL and college coach, lived and breathed the game for many decades. And Rick, I don't know that there's anyone who does more research or has more, in my opinion, more pertinent things to say about the franchise than you. You do the homework. As we're sitting here in June, your thoughts on this Colts team heading into this season?
I think this is a very solid team that could be very competitive. When I look at this team, I'm not sure that I feel like it's necessarily a busload of game changers, but on the positive side, this is a team with very few liabilities. And then when I get ready to play a team or now study a team, first thing I look about is who are the ambient guys? Who are the guys that keep me up at night? Who do I have to have a scheme to stop? And then number two, who are the weak sisters? Who are the guys I can attack in a critical situation? Well, I don't feel like the Colts have many weak sisters. I think they've had a real solid offseason, signing the two defensive backs, Ward and Bynum. These are top-tier players. I really like the Wally kid at the corner that they drafted out of Minnesota. So I think what was a talent weakness has been addressed. I really do. Mm-hmm. Of course, the biggest factor, when you're a team that's 9-8, 8-9, it's defining you as in the middle. And what takes you beyond that is the quarterback play. I was very much in favor of Daniel Jones. I know he's had some bad times, but I was present in 22 when he shredded us as a quarterback with the Giants. 2 weeks later, won a big playoff game against the Vikings. I've seen that guy's ceiling, and I think it could be good. I think what you're looking at is, in bringing in Daniel Jones, two very positive outcomes could be there. They could both be negative, but two positives. One, Daniel's presence will force AR5 to reach his ceiling. Whether you call that competition, I call it presence, but whatever. That presence of that guy makes him just all of a sudden find it. Or the second positive is that Daniel Jones becomes last year's Sam Darnold, the comeback player of the year. A year ago, when we were talking, no one would ever have made Sam Darnold. He wasn't even going to be a starter.
Right.
They would never have made him the player of the year. So this can happen. So now, obviously, in watching the ball club in minicamp and in OTAs, obviously Richardson just can't catch a break. Here goes the shoulder. It's sore, the one that was operated on. They obviously have to pull him out of it. But what that did was give Daniel Jones the needed repetition with this new team. And he got rep after rep. And I think was pretty impressive, actually. I thought he was accurate. He's on top of it. He's smart, makes really good decisions. Some people question the deep ball. I'm not sure about that. He played 2 years with no receivers. Sometimes when coaches don't have a great receiver core, they shrink it down. They play in a phone booth, so to speak. When you look at that, I think some things that I liked, everybody knows the Pittmans and Taylors and all these guys, but some things that stood out for me in the mini camp of new people was Jones, number one. Warren, the kid we drafted, number one, I think is the real deal.
Yeah.
I think he's very impressive. I think he is a guy that can affect a game. And then the kid that had a good, now you knock on wood because it's no pads, but the Mitchell kid who was drafted high a year ago had a very good summer. We can go with that a little bit. I think when I look at this team, I think, again, this team is competitive. I think it could be a division winner. But to me, it comes down to four things that I'll be looking at every single day. And there's a lot of minutia involved, but four major issues. Okay. Number one, Miss Sherry, she knows this, is the quarterback.
Yeah.
Who is it going to be and how good are they going to be? If we can get top tier quarterbacking, then we're going to be in the hunt for the division championship. I think number two is the new defensive coordinator, Lou Anarumo. What is his handprint going to mean? Personally, I think it's going to be excellent. Okay. I have not been happy with the last two regimes in terms of defensive design, game plans, game management. And I have not, there's been no secret to any that, what I say here, I'll say on the air, I'll say any place. Lou brings a much more diversified, game plan oriented, attacking, aggressive type of defense. I think his handprint, and along with that, we've helped him with some really good back end players that will make up for some of our deficiencies in the past. Number three, and I think we'll be all right here, but it's fairly untested, our place kicking. We've got Schrader and Trujillo, and you never think about that till you lose a game because you miss a chip shot.
Yeah.
So I think that is going to be critical simply because I can't stamp it. I don't know who they are. And you can watch them kick out there with no pressure. But once you get into the game, then the pressure's everything. And I think number four, and some people will push back on this, but I think one of the most important things is actually the growth of Shane Steichen as a head coach. There's not much question about how he can run an offense and design an offense, but as a head coach, can he hold them accountable? Can he adapt week to different things and all the personnel changes that happen? Can he motivate? And I think those four issues are really the critical big picture issues. Now, there's other things, center, right guard. Those things have a way of taking care of themselves. The big issues are the critical ones.
What's your guess at this point? Do you think Daniel Jones is going to be the starter week one? And so many questions you don't know about Anthony Richardson and how he responds to the injury and the shoulder and all that kind of stuff. But how do you see that? How do you see that playing out? And your thoughts, a lot of fans are down on him for a variety of reasons.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
I think, first of all, I think your observation is exactly right. Richardson's gone from the savior, and all of a sudden he just seems out of sorts, even with the coaching staff.
Yeah.
When you get comments, they're backhanded. They're never, it's that push is not there for obvious reasons. I think the Colts blew it a little bit in their narrative on him last year when they sat him down. I think they could have handled it by just saying, hey, he's struggling. He needs some time off. We're going to go with Joe to win games. When they created the narrative of a guy who doesn't work at it, isn't professional, that sticks. And I don't like that. I never did that as a coach, particularly at the pro level when you're so scrutinized 7 days a week around the clock. And so I think there's a little bit of a narrative there, and I don't buy it. I've seen him first guy on the field, last guy off. He can do some things tremendous that give you headaches on defense. Tremendous runner, not good runner, tremendous runner, home run hitter. He can throw a hell of a deep ball. The guy is accurate on the deep ball, and he can make off-platform things. He can do things on the playground beyond it. His biggest issue, and this is the key to him, this is key to now in the future, could he ever develop the second, what we call a mid-range game? If you're talking about a basketball player, it's the mid-range jumper, not the three-point. He can hit the three-point. It's the mid-range consistent jump. accuracy. And when you have to play in the mid-range, it comes down to two things. It comes down to anticipation, and it comes down to pinpoint accuracy. I always say on Saturday, when you're playing a Saturday game, a college game, you throw the ball to open receivers. When you're playing on Sunday, you're throwing receivers open. So that's where the anticipation, the Staffords, the Mannings, the Bradys, they throw to where you're going to be, not to where you are. And that is a quality he hasn't mastered yet. Can he? Jury's out. And with that goes pinpoint accuracy in those situations, specialized situations, particularly third down, which is a game to itself in the NFL, and red zone. Those are two areas that defy everything else. I think that's the critical issue. Steichen keeps saying consistency, and I almost take that as code for Jones, okay? Because Jones is not – Richardson is going to give you the wow play and then the head scratcher. Jones is going to give you that mid-range, that consistent. He may not give you the wow play, but I don't think he's going to give it away either. This may be a team that if you just don't give it away, you could be pretty salty. I think the problem in you asked the question, and I'm not evading it. It's just very difficult to answer at this moment because Richardson has immense talent. Just to throw him out of there is wrong, and he can't help it that he got hurt here on the shoulder. I think the problem that you're going to have is you can talk competition all you want. All right. Oh, we have competition. It is impossible. This is since I was 7 years old. You cannot judge a quarterback in the National Football League till he's playing real games under fire, bullets flying, sophisticated coverages. You don't get that in practice. You do not get it in preseason games. So when you say competition, it's going to come down to your gut. Yeah. It really is. My buddies in the media, they're just doing their job, but they'll print every day. 7 on 7, he was 9 of 12. I'm always, so why isn't he 12 of 12? But the guy, I kid him on the field. What is he today? But it's what I'm saying. It's a bit of a false narrative because none of that matters till you're playing in real live situations, which won't come until the Dolphin game in September. At the end of the day, you're going to have to watch it day by day. And then for opening day anyway, you're going to have to go from your gut. It's going to be one of those – coaching is that way. It's just coaching is, particularly in the NFL, is very subjective to a degree. There's enough numerical metrics. There's enough analytics, and I'm a fan of those things. But in the end, there's still that little bit of gut that has to be there.
Yeah. Rick Venturi, I could listen to you talk football all day, but we've run out of time here, and I really appreciate the perspective on Jim Irsay, the franchise, leadership, and this next edition of the Colts. Thanks for taking the time, Rick. I hope to run into you soon.
All right, Gary. Always love being with you.
All right, my friend. And thank you for joining us on this edition of the Business and Beyond podcast presented by PNC. We're a weekly conversation with achievers in business, sports, entertainment, and beyond. And you can download all episodes of the Business and Beyond podcast and get Indiana business news 24/7. All you have to do is go to InsideIndianaBusiness.com. I'm Gary Dick. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.